Good morning. Buenos dias. Good morning to the one person on Twitch. Cheers. Welcome. I actually like Twitch. It seems like a pretty good platform. Really good video and audio quality, great streaming. I don't use it much personally, but as a user and as a streamer, it's been fantastic. Interesting platform. So, welcome. Good morning. And trivia question. What is missing from the intro scene while the music is playing before my live stream? I just noticed it. I thought I fixed it, but apparently not. So if you are a long time watcher, all three of you who suffer through this, you may notice in the first minute before the live stream is just stabilizing, something has changed. You will need to have an eagle eye to catch it because I just noticed it. I thought I fixed it. Apparently not. I need to figure out there are 27 layers in vMix here that can control this. So I need to find it. Buenos dias, Senor Christopher. Americano vanilla bean coffee. And I believe, Christopher, you have a mad science lab of coffee flavors at your house, if I recall correctly from a photo. I am drinking the straight Cafe Negro Toragos from Good Bean El Salvador. If you're ever in San Salvador, stop by Good Bean, say hi to Gabe, pick up some coffee. It's a good visit. Buenos dias, Mr. Ted. Good morning. Come on in here. It's a Friday. We all survived. Celebrate small victories, right? And I found this photo. I thought it was appropriate. It was actually my photo. I was digging through some other stuff. Thought it was pretty good. And it reminds me that in my house, we have 37 coffee cups, all of them different. I have a coffee mug from when I was 18 years old and went to a Deloitte & Touche recruiting event before I worked for them. And I still have it. I think the Deloitte & Touche logo is completely gone. It's washed off, but I know what mug it is. So that tells you about my coffee mug selection at my house. Ted is experimenting with decaf. Lo siento, my apologies. I have had decaf that I thought was fine, but then I tried the fancy decaf, like these, third wave roasters who say we do decaf with the premium, washed process decaf, whatever, super duper spring water, whatever it's called. It was absolutely horrific. And I'm just like, what is this? It tasted horrible. Like cheap decaf, like instant decaf is actually, I'm okay with that. But when you pay $20 a bag for decaf, oh my gosh, it was undrinkable. I just threw it away. It was horrible. So I've given up on decaf. Maybe I'll get some Taster's Choice instant if I want decaf. But anyway, good morning, Jason. TGIF. Cheers to that. Drink to that. So, yes, let's start with the weekend. Let's go in order. The weekend. My wife likes to hike, and she invited me on a hike this weekend. I don't know why. I normally don't get the invite, I'm okay with that, actually. But I got invited to this hike. I said, sure, why not, right? So we went down to somewhere in Orange County. I don't know where it was. It was nice. It was like hills in a semi-suburban area, but it was over 5 miles, somewhere around 5.25, 5.5 miles, and 2.25, 2.5 hour march. It was absolutely exhausting, and there were some pretty big hills involved. So we were both pretty beat at the end, but it was good to get out. It had been a long time since I've done a local hike, so that was fun. And thank you to my lovely wife for dragging me out of the house. Now, I fully endorse if she wants a new hobby like sofa testing, right? Long-term sofa comfort testing. I think that is a much more respectable hobby, but I guess hiking will be a distant second. Okay, so that was my weekend. I was absolutely exhausted. And unfortunately, my Sunday, I got some bad news. This is my friend Mike. He was in the IT department of a client, an ERP customer. Yeah, Novoa Dev, I agree with you. Decaffeinated coffee is sad. So I met Mike years ago at a Dynamics GP customer here in LA, and it was a big company. Was spent months there on site. Got to know him. He worked in IT, and he worked in the server room, which proper server room, raised floor, torrential windstorm of fans, like deafeningly loud, and somehow he worked in there. So I think he was a little traumatized. So when he'd come out, he was actually like, oh my God, actual humans, and I'm out of the server room. So I met him at that GP customer, and we stayed in touch, and went to his wedding. We were good friends, and he is actually the one who got me into coffee, seriously. And unfortunately, I was actually texting him on Sunday night, hey, I'm going to mess around with this espresso machine contraption thing. And I got a message that it was from his wife that he had a heart attack and was in the hospital. And unfortunately, he passed away on Sunday, late Sunday evening. So here's to Mike. Cheers. He's the one who totally got me into coffee. And this is us in Orange County. He invited me to a coffee class. It was a 2-day weekend coffee class at Hacia Coffee. And they are an importer of premium beans into Orange County. And they supply a lot of the high-end coffee shops and roasters in Southern California. So cheers, Mike. Thank you for the good times. And this was the warehouse where they had, these massive 100+ pound bags of beans. And we took a full coffee, I guess, history lesson, agriculture lesson, production lesson, import, tasting, cupping, sample roasting, and even home roasting. So it was a lot of fun. And he's the one who got me to buy my Baratza grinder that sounded like a garbage truck. And then we traded notes over the years and eventually upgraded our gear. So here's to Mike. And I am, exploring whether we do some type of program with the coffee industry in El Salvador. And maybe we make an internship program, in his honor, something like that. So, yep. So thank you, Mike, for the good times and the good coffee. So, weekly projects. It is another busy week. Most of the time these days, I am managing the team, coordinating with the US team and the Berlin team and our developer, and doing projects and tasks. So I'm just running around like a chicken with my head cut off. And it is conference season coming up. Conferences are finalizing their agenda, so we're dealing with that and conference sessions. Working on quite a few report extensions, at least one a week now, pretty common. And we're trying to get faster and faster with those and bring Franklin up to speed. BC Admin API, we're making slow progress there. And electrical and air conditioning news on that front. So on Monday morning, we got a support ticket from our customer at the ERP support team help desk, a dedicated help desk run out of Berlin, El Salvador. You might have heard of it. And they jumped on that right away and they said, Steve, what is this? Well, it was one of our customers that is using one of our Blue Dragonfly app source apps. And this is called the TriumphPay integration, where we integrate with a transportation industry solution called TriumphPay. And they've been using it for months, I think since November, December, and they process it every day, first thing in the morning, hundreds or even potentially over 1,000 transactions every morning, the first thing they do. So it's been running flawlessly. But Monday morning, they got this error. Registration could not be validated. And I'm like, what's going on? Now, we had previously identified a bug or a flaw in our registration that did not properly account for environments. So refreshing from production to a sandbox, there was a bug and it invalidated the production license. So we fixed that though, and everything's been fine for a couple months. And now we got this. So we're like, I'm like, what's going on here? So I go check the license. It looks fine. I go in their environment. I refresh the license. Looks fine. Turns out that after looking at the telemetry, we had a pile of these, I won't call them error messages. I've been corrected in that. These are telemetry signals, and the error code or the ID is RT0018. And the message is operation exceeded time threshold in an AL method. And thanks to help from Waldo. Thank you, Waldo. Hope you enjoy the Salvadoran coffee. This apparently means that an AL method took more than 750 milliseconds to run or to complete. And so the telemetry will push this signal and say, hey, you have this AL method that at whatever level, I don't know if that's a discrete command or at whether it's a procedure call, it took more than 750 milliseconds. And we had hundreds of these on Monday. We're like, what is going on? Maybe we had, in the month prior, I think we had less than 10. So like very, very unusual. But now we suddenly had hundreds on Monday the 3rd. So we were scratching our heads trying to figure that out. We thought we found it, but it turns out we misinterpreted our own telemetry on the Azure function side. So our only guess at this point is we're speculating that something in Azure Functions was non-performant, performing slowly in the Azure function infrastructure, all 27 layers of that pile. Something wasn't performant there, and it was causing our registration calls to take perhaps more than a second. And that eventually piled up somewhere in our routine to cause this timeout or this error in the registration. So we're still digging into it. We don't think it's anything in our code. We think it's an external dependency that's slowing things down. So we're having to dial back our the aggressiveness of our registration to do it less frequently and handle this type of timing issue. So yeah, it was really interesting. It's like, oh, here's the problem. It's like, wait, no, that's not it. Oh, here's the problem. And we're going down different paths and we're not finding an exact cause. So this is going to take hours, days of research to try and trace what's going on. We're pretty sure it's not fundamentally our code because this is a very unusual exception over months of runtime. So yeah, very interesting. So really, really deep black hole that we're going to have to, rabbit hole we're going to have to dig down to figure out how do we diagnose this? How do we find the problem? What telemetry do we have that can further assist this in the future? And how can we, have some signal that will indicate to us that we're creeping towards this problem again? But anyway, we think fundamentally maybe our license validation, registration validation is a little too aggressive, and we just need to dial it back a bit so that we're not calling as frequently. So that's our guess. And before I get to that, we worked on an MEM report extension, and Franklin did it. I made everyone just let him do it. And despite, it's like, well, we could do it faster through our developer. It's like, no, we're going to work through it. We're going to suffer the pain. We're going to push through it. We're going to learn. And we did. So Franklin did his first report extension and submitted it to DevOps and did his first pull request. Or effectively pull request. I'm not sure what we're calling it internally in DevOps, but he got that submitted, had a few corrections from our senior dev, and hey, It worked. Now, we're still working through a few problems because it involves an MEM dependency, we're not able to use Cosmo Alpaca pipelines, build pipelines. We're trying to work through that and figure out a solution, but at this time, apparently the Alpaca infrastructure doesn't allow us to have app source app dependencies in our build pipelines. That's my understanding. So we can't run our normal build pipelines. So now we have manual, and so it's a bit of a thing. So it was kind of a trial by fire for Franklin. It was good, learned lots, and we pulled it out and got it delivered. So then I kind of celebrated. I bought this Lenovo ThinkCentre Tiny PC off of eBay. It is an i7, 16 gigs of RAM. It's like the M910 or M910Q or something like that. Relatively recent model, 4 or 5 years old. Perfectly fine. You know, it's a steel box. And welcome, Eric. Buenos dias. Come on in. And I'm using this to replace the Pi-hole, as I discussed in my last live stream. I run Pi-hole. I love it, but I'm running on two Pi-holes on 2 Raspberry Pis, and I want to get off of that for performance and reliability reasons. So this is going to be my new primary Pi-hole server. Bought this on eBay for $99 because the listing said that it had no hard drive. It's like, fine, I don't care. I'll pop a new SSD in there, and like I don't have to deal with the eBay hard drive, and you never know what you're getting. And so $99. Normally they're minimum $175 and up for this class of tiny PC. So $99, opened it up, sure, it was completely gutted out on the main body. But then I was like, okay, where's the M.2 slot for this thing? I forgot. I hadn't looked at it. And turns out the eBay seller didn't know where the M.2 slot was either, because if I'm not mistaken, I would call that a hard drive. Yes, it's an SSD. Yes, it's an M.2, but it has a 512 gigabyte M.2 SSD. It is the OEM original Samsung SSD from Lenovo. I can tell by the firmware, foreshadowing. And yeah, I turned it on, plugged in a monitor. It boots right into Windows with the corporate domain that it used to be used for. So perfect. So I installed Ubuntu server on it, and it is going to be Pi-hole. And I think I'm going to go bare metal with Pi-hole. I don't think I'm going to use Docker because I have issues there. So yeah, I didn't even have to supply a SSD, and it's ready to go. And so it was like quite a steal. And I'm continuing to be impressed by Ubuntu. Last episode, I said I was shocked that Ubuntu Desktop detected that the firmware and a wireless USB dongle needed to be updated. Well, it detected that the firmware of this Samsung SSD that I got for free needed to be updated. So it is a Samsung firmware for Lenovo PC. So it's the OEM SSD. Awesome. And it's like, do you want me to update your firmware? Like, dude, that's crazy. Okay, I guess. So I got Lenovo installed, but I will say I know nothing about, I'm extremely dangerous with Linux. I know just enough to get myself into trouble. So I pulled up an LLM saying, okay, great. This is going to be my Pi-hole DNS server. How do I set a static IP address? I used an LLM to start asking these questions. Holy cow, it was a complete fail. Not necessarily the LLM's fault, but it points to a problem with relying upon LLMs. And if you know if you know more than me about configuring a static IP address in Ubuntu server, it apparently has changed since the last time I did it, and it uses a YAML file now. And there's at least 2 different YAML file formats with at least several different variants of the parameters and settings in that YAML file. And if you ask an LLM how to configure a static IP address in Ubuntu server, Ask it 6 times, you will get 6 different answers. And the one thing on top of the different formats, different parameters, different configuration options, and the things it's completely leaving out, it will not tell you that one errant space or lack of a space in this YAML file will cause it to not work and will cause you to waste an hour trying to figure out how to do this and questioning your sanity. So, yeah, Ted says set a static lease in DHCP. That is probably the smart option. I may look into that. I was able to figure it out, but there are multiple YAML formats like V1, V2. There are different parameters. I don't know what any of them means. The LLM just spits out one random blog post, and that person doesn't know either. So it's just the blind leading the blind, and that's used to train an LLM that spits out random garbage without any like thoughtful guidance like, hey, dummy, you're missing a space that's pretty critical in this file. Also, it doesn't tell you that the permissions need to be set. So Ubuntu's yelling at me that the permissions are insecure. Long story. So that was really interesting. I now know I absolutely cannot rely on LLMs for that type of content. So, learning. Yeah, so Ted says if you do a static lease in DHCP, if you rebuild the system, you don't really care. Yeah, so that's probably the smart approach. And so I need to roll it back. Also, there's a thing in Ubuntu server, like a cloud DHCP, I forget the name, cloud something, and it will set a secondary IP address on the same interface. I'm like, what? So you got to go disable that. And it's for some type of like hosted deployment. I don't know. So I'm way out of my depth. And that's kind of why the Pi hole on the Raspberry Pi is kind of a nice deal. It's just like idiot proof. I'm living proof that is idiot proof because I've used it for years. So yeah, Eric says, I'm waiting for an AI that can say, I don't know, or that I'm not sure. Please, like the blind confidence that these things have in spewing out this nonsense. And what's hilarious is the new meme on social media is, I asked Grok and it supports my random opinion of something. It's like, dude, really? Ask an LLM anything and it'll just agree with you. Yeah, it's like, I want an LLM that'll say, I don't know, you might want to be careful there. You're going into a hornet's nest. So anyway. So that was fun. That was my geekend. I haven't set up Pi-hole on it yet, but at least I got the box, and I think Ted has a good idea. Let me get rid of the static IP and set a lease in my DHCP. So fish du jour, the fish of the day, soup of the day. I thought that was kind of clever. Fish du jour. So the new fish du jour that I'm getting, it last couple weeks ago, is the whole PayPal scam. I'm still getting these bizarre emails saying you've paid a PayPal invoice. This one is a EFT remittance phishing thing. And I've got these before, but I'm just getting a pile of them and they come in these weird waves. So I got 3 of them in just 2 days, I think. Really strange. Now, I do get EFT remittances. We have like 500, 600 customers. So I regularly get these. And so it is really hard to, like, I have to be super careful whenever I get an EFT remittance email. It's like, okay, is this phishing or is this legitimate? And I have to spend at least a minute just looking at the email, all the details before I open a PDF or do anything, because like I know I'm getting actively phished on this stuff. So I don't think I'm being targeted. I think these are just blasts and they come in weird waves. Yeah, Eric's getting the PayPal ones. Like they're bizarre and they appear to be legitimate PayPal emails. As far as I could tell on the PayPal ones, they're going to an alias that they're using as a distribution list. So PayPal is not detecting that they're fraudulent somehow. And so it apparently appears to be a bot or some routine that's setting up fake PayPal accounts that's blasting those out. But this is the new wave of the EFT ACH notifications. And I don't know if these are US specific. Like, I don't know that an ACH notification would make sense in Spain, right? Like, you'd be like, what? So I don't know if these are geo-targeted. But anyway. Tuesday, Martes. We are continuing the work. on refreshing the sandbox and installing MEM. That is Ronald's project. And so he set up the Power Automate flow. We delete prod copy. We refresh from prod into the prod copy sandbox. And he has an installation routine through the BC Admin API to install MEM. And that will guarantee that we always have a fresh MEM sandbox to do testing and report extensions. So that's just become a thing. So it's awesome. Kind of two birds. He's learning. We have a MEM sandbox, so it's working out well. And Franklin submitted his first Sentinel rule. Congratulations, Franklin. Good job. He submitted that to GitHub, to Stefan Marone's repo, and it is to validate the GL posting dates on the GL setup window, or the allowed posting dates. So it's something we've seen at customers. We've had several support tickets. So first Sentinel rule, scan for blank or kind of old, not updated, invalid posting date ranges. So that's pretty cool. He went from never hearing of AL before to submitting to a community open source project on GitHub. So awesome job, Franklin. And there's our production prod copy sandbox. And so that's pretty cool. That is being refreshed nightly, and we're just testing reliability, seeing how well the flow works, seeing if BC complains. So far, it's been fine. Every night, prod copy gets deleted and refreshed. So that's working great. And there is the submission by Frank, GL posting fields check rule number 8. And that is, I think it's SE9 on the alert code enum. Very cool. And Wednesday, miércoles, worked on the team, the ERP Center of Excellence team worked on the MEM Aged AR report. And that involved adding the external document number, which, my gosh, Business Central, come on. External document number should be on every list page. It should be on every report, period. No exceptions, just like every one of our customers needs it. Every one of our customers uses it. And I guess binary stream that goes for you too. So we had to do a report extension to get the external document number on there. So Franklin did that. And then David worked on the actual RDLC report layout to add the field and reformat it to clean it up. So that worked well. And, see, I'm not catching up with my clicking. So there is our MEM aged accounts receivable. So that's looking good and looking clean. And so David did that work, slammed it out, even tested it in export send to Excel, because that's how the customer's apparently reviewing it. So that worked out well. Nice job, David. And then, blast from the past, I got an email from a customer wanting to use my GP software. And they said, yeah, we're doing these new integrations and we want your software. I was like, great, send me your information. And I'm looking at the screenshot of their GP version and I'm like, wait, I don't get it. The version number looked wrong. And I looked up and I saw this. I was just speechless. Dynamics GP 2013, not only they're still running this, which is fine, it's stable, but they are actively investing in it with new integrations. They're buying my software to help with AP, payment application processing. Don't ask me. I'm not complaining, but I'm not advising them either. I'm like, okay, I'll sell you my software. Great. And I actually had to check, do I even still support GP 2013? Turns out I still support GP 2010. So folks, if you're running a 15-year-old version of Dynamics GP, hit me up. I will be happy to sell you my software and I will support it for many years in the future. Okay. And then I found yet another website that blocked the use of my simple login email alias. I'm kind of impressed. So this was a quasi-financial related website. And so they are clearly doing some pretty rigorous email validation. And I thought that's strange because I have set up another account with this site And sure enough, I went back and I checked, and I am using an alias. So sometime, I don't know when I set up that account, I'd have to look. Sometime from the first account to the second account test, they enabled disposable email address checking. And yeah, like, okay, good on them, I guess. Maybe trying to reduce fraud, bots, fake account, whatever. Like, I get it. It's kind of annoying for me, but interesting. So, yeah, that would be the third or fourth, at least the fourth website. I think that's been blocked. So here's a rant, hashtag rant. Okay. I occasionally see these comments like, is it open source software? Yeah, that's great, but I only use open source. Okay, fine. And they wag their finger at you that open source is better, and like they don't say why. Like, it's better, it's more secure. I only use open source on Linux. That is the patently stupidest opinion in the world. And I'll show you why. I'm not just making that up. Because if you bother to actually look at the repos for most open source projects, how many maintainers do you have on that project? And then if you go down the stack and you look at the 97 dependencies on this little hobby project that's open source, how many maintainers are on each of those little open source libraries that are dependencies for this hobby project? Oh my gosh. If you think that open source is in any way reliable, better, more secure, that is an absolute fantasy. And like, I'm sorry, you're in absolute denial, and go onto any GitHub repo, and there is receipt after receipt and just endless evidence of the just really, really scary problem in open source. And here we go. I'm trying to troubleshoot this little website thing. I was trying to install it or run it. It didn't work, like at all. There's zero information about this error message, error number. They're pushing an error number with zero documentation, first of all. And then I'm like, okay, I gave up. But I happen to check the full logs and I see this message. And I'm like, I have no idea what this means. bcrypt has no attribute about. It looked like a warning. I can't tell if it's an error warning. I don't know if it has anything to do with the problem I'm having. So I see this on the log, and I just happen to go over the repo and I see this in the issues list. I'm like, I recognize that. What is this? According to another bug report, this is a problem in passlib, which can be fixed by pinning bcrypt to version 4.01. Okay, I kind of know what that means, but why would you need to pin bcrypt to version 4.01? I was able to confirm that this setting in the TOML, whatever that means, and running poetry update, whatever that means, will fix the issue. Fix the issue. It doesn't fix the issue. It just makes this error message go away. It's duct tape over a Band-Aid over a gushing open wound. Why? There doesn't seem to be much hope in passlib fixing this bug, as that library has not been updated since 2020. Yes, folks, your precious open source project that is so great that doesn't work with undocumented bugs because it has a dependency on an open source library maintained by one guy who hasn't updated it since 2020. Why? Let's dig into that. So I find the passlib, I can't quite tell, it's a Python library, last updated in October 2020, but it's open source. Okay, and guess what people are doing? They are pinning to a 5-year-old password encryption or hashing library. That's kind of important, folks. Like, Eli seems like a legend, but he was the sole maintainer of this library used by thousands of open source projects. Did he get any contributions? No. And he kind of gave up maintaining it. So I started to dig around, and I found His last post that I could find was 11 months ago. He recognizes that this is a problem. Crickets. I don't blame him. He's been maintaining this library for like a decade. And people are like, why doesn't this work? All they're doing is complaining. And now the people who don't understand what they're doing what that first post said. Oh, let's pin to bcrypt 4.01. Hello, folks. You're going to pin to a 5-year-old encryption library that is out of date and it's now on 4.3.0? Brilliant idea. Why don't you store all your money, all your passwords, all your security in 4.01? Never maintain it. Just pin it. That'll solve your problem. Folks, it is just unmaintained libraries all the way down. And if you look at the open source vulnerability checking system, I forget what it's called, VulnPass or whatever it's called, just thousands of attempts to inject malicious code into these libraries that are poorly maintained or unmaintained, that then are dependencies rolled up into hundreds of thousands of open source projects. And if you think I'm making this up and that open source is the greatest thing since sliced bread, let me just introduce you to our good friend Log4Shell. If you have not heard of Log4j, Log4Shell, tell me that open source is more secure than anything else. Like, I'm sorry. Hashtag end rant. So that was how I wasted hours trying to use an open source project. I have now written this off as unreliable. It simply doesn't work, and it is relying upon 5-year-old libraries that are unmaintained and causing security vulnerabilities. It is a disaster. And I don't fault the maintainers. Like, there's probably just 1 or 2 people tops dealing with this stuff. It's a lot of work. And they made a poor choice of relying upon this library, which they clearly didn't check the repo of because it had not been maintained for 5 years, folks. When you go into NuGet, when you go into NPM, and you just add these dozens of libraries, are you checking the repository history? Are you checking the maintainers? No. That's the basis of open source. Anyway, moving on. More positive news. Upcoming events. Próximos eventos. Okay, Directions NA, April 7th through 9th in Las Vegas. And I empathized with them, but they were a little late to announce the sessions and speakers. I just got notification of this on Monday night, I think. Someone's like, hey, did you know you're speaking at Directions NA? I'm like, wait, what? Like, yeah, your session got selected. No, I didn't know that. Then Monday night, I found it on Tuesday. I got a message on Monday night, didn't even see it, that one of my sessions had been selected. And so I do empathize. It is very challenging to select sessions. I get it. But yeah, it's cutting it a little close. I do not have travel. I do not have hotel. I haven't even registered, so I have to do that this week. So anyway, I'll see you in Las Vegas for Directions NA, my old stomping grounds. The last time I went to Directions NA in Las Vegas, I got influenza A on the flight to Las Vegas and got very ill because some guy was coughing literally nonstop for 45 minutes right behind me. Good times. Hopefully I can avoid that this time. Color Cloud is April 24th and 25th in Hamburg, Germany. Eric will be there. So come to Directions NA and see 2 prolific, what do we call ourselves, Eric? Like video people? I don't know. Color Cloud in Hamburg, Germany. Dynamics Con, May 13th through 16th in Chicago. I will see you there. I believe I am presenting on 2 sessions, if I'm not mistaken. I need to finalize those, so that's why I empathize with the Directions NA folks. We have to finalize a few session descriptions, but we've largely selected all the sessions. Yeah, Eric, we're YouTubers. We're social media influencers. I joke about that when I want to annoy my kids and embarrass them. I was like, Your dad is a social media influencer. So there. How many followers do you have on YouTube? That's my joke. Then Dynamics Minds on May 26 in Slovenia. And what else? So lots of upcoming events. Thursday, Jueves, I attended a cybersecurity webinar by Black Hills Information Security. If you are not familiar with BHIS, Black Hills Information Security, or their partner training company, oh my gosh, what is the name of that company? I apologize. Anti-Siphon Training. Check them out. Just absolute legends in the cybersecurity realm. Fantastic content. Pay what you can training sessions. I believe his name is John Strand, a absolute OG legend in the cybersecurity world. Crazy, crazy stories. Really, really top notch. This one was a little chaotic because they're working out some bugs, but they apparently created a new open source tool. Open source, folks. Yes. And it's a bit of a duct tape situation at the moment, but they created a tool called Wi-Fi Forge by Black Hills Information Security and Anti-Siphon. And this is a really interesting tool that runs on, I guess they originally did it on Ubuntu, some other variant of Linux, and they're trying to port it over to Kali because that's the cybersecurity flavor for Linux and pen testers. And apparently Kali is different enough that it is a nightmare to port over to Kali. So they're fighting that, actively fighting that. And Wi-Fi Forge is, I guess, more of a learning and training tool that allows you to do Wi-Fi pen testing, Wi-Fi hacking without any Wi-Fi. So you could be totally offline, and WiForge will simulate whatever networks you want, and it will allow you to hack them. So over my head, I get the concept, but for instance, if you look at this menu, you can do crack WPA with AirCrack. So it will create a SSID. It'll simulate the broadcasts, and you can do deauth attacks, and then you can capture the reauth packets, and then you can use you can sniff the packets and crack them offline, which I did with my 12-year-old daughter. So it's not hard to do, really fun to do. And if you're not familiar with deauth attacks and Wi-Fi cracking, it's a great little exercise. It's a lot of fun. So it lets you do that. It does an evil twin. Also, just a notorious attack on Wi-Fi Fisher. It's got NTLM and John Crack in there, AirSuite Recon, WEP Attack, Better Cap Recon. So I don't know what many of those are, but I've heard of several of those. So really cool tool that can be used as a training tool using I forget what they call this. It's like a driver tester or some type of test suite that they discovered in Linux or Unix. Super complex. They said they were pulling their hair out fighting with this thing because it's basically undocumented, but really interesting learning and training exercise. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, if you're into cybersecurity, check out Black Hills Information Security and Anti-Siphon. They do regular webinars or what they call anti-training. I forget what they call it, but fun sessions with them. And yesterday, I discovered this thing. Like, I'm not into this, so no surprise that I didn't know about it. I was trying to view the Power Automate flows that Ronald created to refresh our BC environments using Admin API. And I'm like, I can't see them. Ronald, can you share them to me? This is at night. So he's like, well, the laptop's in the office. I'm not home, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, let me see if I can figure out a way to do this. So I Googled it. It gave me instructions. And I'm like, what is this? Apparently there's this thing called Power Platform Admin Center. I didn't know. And you can see all flows in your environment. And it allowed me to go in here, select a flow, and at the top, you see the share button. So I then had to share his flow with me through the admin center. And I figured it out, but the point is, oh dear, this is the worst interface. It is horrible. Like, it is absolutely horrible. And if this is what Power Platform and Power Apps looks like, oh my gosh, this is not something to be proud of. Like, you see those check marks? You cannot select more than one. Like, just horrible, horrible experience trying to do this. And yeah, first time I've done it, but it's bad. And if this is our platform, I don't want to have anything to do with it. So I'll let Ronald deal with that, but I know that he's not a huge fan of a lot of the navigation. And if you've ever tried to build a flow, you know the Power Automate flow building interface is not user friendly. So anyway, Summit NA Roadshows coming to a city near you. Yeah, and Eric says, at least it's fast, unresponsive. It's like 2 seconds to do anything. You click the save button, you go get a cup of coffee. It's just so frustratingly poorly designed and non-performant, unfortunately. Yeah, Jason points out, it's worse when somebody leaves and they have flows the company uses. Yes, and that was one of the articles in the forums that I said. It's like, some guy wrote a flow and we have no idea how to find it. Well, you go into the horrible Power Platform Admin Center, you dig 3 layers deep, you scroll 97 pages down because you have to click show more, show more, show more at the bottom of this list. Then you have to keep scrolling to find it in this jungle of flows. And then you can only check one at a time. Then you click share. And if it refreshes, you got to click show more. Anyway, you empathize with me. It's pretty bad. Summit NA Roadshows. Double check all these dates before attending or signing up. Washington, D.C., Toronto, Minneapolis, Columbus, Chicago, and Philadelphia, April through June, coming to a city near you. I've never attended one of these. I think they had one in LA, but it's clear over in Marina Del Rey. Ain't nobody got time to drive over to Marina Del Rey. The last time I did that, it was like 4 hours driving. It was just, no one showed up. It's just tough in the big cities. So let me know how these events are. Hope you enjoy them. Friday, Viernes. I have to plan for my Directions NA presentation that I learned about. And come up with an outline. My co-presenter is the wonderful Miss Tanya Henderson, partner in crime. And we have an unusual topic. Technically, it is not Business Central specific, but it is Business Central partner related and Microsoft partner related. So join us there. And I need to finalize a few session descriptions for the BC technical track at Dynamics Con in Chicago coming up. And then will Steve ever catch up on Bankrex? That is the mystery of the month. I hope so. It's been a couple weeks and I still haven't caught up on my Bankrex. And is it possible that I will relax for 5 minutes? That's a good question. Eric said that he attended the Vancouver session for the, I already forgot what it was called, the Summit NA Roadshows. So he said it was fun. So go check it out. Check out the agenda, see what's on the menu, and go meet some people in person, IRL, as the cool kids say. So this is my Friday. This is my second cup of coffee. I've got 16 ounces of freshly brewed Toragos from Good Beans El Salvador. That is sustaining me. And, oh my gosh, this is unacceptable. I'm going to fire my production assistant who did not do my slides properly. Un momento, lo siento, because I've told this guy multiple times, get your act together. Like, what are you doing? Why can't you get these slides? But he just keeps screwing up. So he's fired. That's it. Okay, so here we go. Berlin office update in the lovely city of Berlin, El Salvador, on some street between some street and another street. That's how they do addresses in Berlin, El Salvador. They do not have numeric address numbers for most places. In our new office, aka a house that we're turning into an office, we had this lovely circuit breaker panel. And it was upgraded to 4 circuits. And it is surprisingly a 220 volt panel. And it had circuits shoved in there, or breakers shoved in there. And those are 330 amp and 140 amp breaker. And if you know anything about North American 120 volt wiring, No bueno. 30 and 40 amp breakers for lights and electrical outlets in a house. So that's where we're at. And we replaced the electrical panel. We did not replace all the breakers at this time. We need to, not because I only discovered this afterwards, but this is our new gigantic, by Berlin standards, gigantic panel in order to support additional circuits for the house, because we have to rewire everything, as well as the new addition to the house. So that's our fancy new panel. And we had to have that panel upgrade in order to get air conditioning installed. And congratulations to the ERP Center of Excellence. You now have air conditioning, which is actually quite a luxury in Berlin, El Salvador. And the idea is comfort, obviously, but also laptop longevity. We have had 2 laptops die. You know, you never know why, but 2 system board failures within 3 months is a little suspicious during rainy season. So we're hoping that this lowers the temperature and dramatically lowers the humidity, particularly during rainy season, and that helps prolong laptop life. So yes, Ted, we are hoping to save some money. So if we save 1 laptop, 2 laptops, that more than pays for this AC unit and installation, which is fairly economical in El Salvador. So there we go. They're enjoying that. And making the house and a new office a little more livable. So cheers to progress paso a paso. And man, my production assistant is useless, sleeping on the job. Okay, so Q&A. What are you up to? Thanks everyone for joining me. We have approximately 56 viewers. Welcome. Happy Friday. Grab a cup. And, what's going on here? There we go. On my random YouTube recommendations, somehow this popped into my feed, M539 Restorations. And this is a guy in Germany who has like a little shed workshop for repairing cars. And he repairs and restores older BMWs. And it is fascinating. Like, I know nothing about this. Like, I'm never going to restore a car. I don't care about BMWs, but he is so meticulous. It is amazing. The amount of money and time he spends, like 641,000 subscribers. I hope he's like making money off the YouTube thing, because he's certainly not making money off of his cars because of the amount of time, effort, and money and just crazy detail he's spending on these things. It takes forever for him to finish a car. And he has completely rebuilt and restored this 8 Series BMW, like everything. The gas tank is removed, every nut, bolt, suspension component, wiring harness, everything has been removed, cleaned till it's spotless. He powder coated all the suspension components. Anything metal under the car got powder coated. Like absolute better than brand new status on every single part. When he can get original parts, he does his best to do so. When those parts are no longer available, or NLA as he calls it, he does his best to source reproductions. And so, yeah. So that is what he is doing. And he just is finishing up this 8 Series BMW. And it just turns out that this was like, I was obsessed with the 8 Series BMWs when I was a kid. I think I was like 16, 17 years old at the time. And I went and took photos of them at the dealership, thought they were the greatest thing in the world. And now I'm seeing these photos of the restorations and these sad 8 Series BMWs. But he's restoring this one to better than new condition. Really, really interesting to watch this journey. So check it out if you're interested. And with that, folks, I'm getting nagged to join a training session with the Berlin team. And thanks for joining. Make some coffee. And hey, enjoy your time with friends, because At least at my age, you never know when they may be gone. So cheers, lift a cup, and go learn something. Okay, talk to you later. Adios.